Hi, I'm Pete Holloway. I'm a retired financial advisor and a retired certified financial planner. And as always, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to On Money. Today we're going to be discussing who brings the talent to the Capitol and to Westbanco Arena. There's always something going on. All those people that say there's nothing to do in Wheeling are really, really wrong. There's always something going on. What's the process of getting the entertainers here and so forth? Our guest today is Kelly Tucker. She graduated from Wheeling Central, attended West Liberty, and her first job was at the Capitol in Jamboree in the Hills. She then went to Star Lake and is now the head of the Greater Wheeling Sports and Entertainment Authority. She has 4 children ranging from ages 27 to 15. I want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, that's an exciting career. Tell us in some detail about your career.
So I started at the Capitol, then called the Capitol Music Hall, when I was in high school as like a part-time job.
Great.
My mother worked there,
Mhm.
so I started there in the box office,
Okay.
but was never afraid to jump in. So I did concessions. I worked in the gift shop. I ushered. I did kind of anything that anyone would allow me to do to learn. And then I was hired full-time later on in the tour service. So that's when Festival of Lights was,
Oh, okay.
big, a lot of motor coaches coming to the area. So I worked and booked their entire stay in Wheeling, from their dinners to their
Wow,
hotels.
that's a big responsibility.
Yes, for motor coaches. So I did that for several years, also working Jamboree in the Hills in the summer, because it was all one and the same at that time. And then the position for general manager came open, and I applied, and I was the general manager of the theater and Jamboree in the Hills. But the theater was short-lived because the Live Nation, who owned the theater at that time, ended up closing the theater. And so then I was strictly Jamboree in the Hills for several years until the position came open at Star Lake Amphitheater for the general manager. So then at that time, I was doing Star Lake Amphitheater and Jamboree in the Hills for several years.
Wow.
Did not have a summer at all. And then, unfortunately, when Jamboree in the Hills ended in 2018, I was strictly at Star Lake. Until the position came open in Wheeling, which I've always lived here, so I commuted. Even when I was working in Pittsburgh, commuted. And what a great opportunity, so
That's
I decided
great.
to apply.
For most of us, Star Lake seems to be the big hitter because they bring in some known big-name acts. Tell us about how that prepared you for this job.
Absolutely. I mean, every single point in my career has prepared me, and no doubt live entertainment has changed over the years, from security protocols to how the artist tours and what they need, their riders, things like that. So absolutely dealing with a crowd of 22,000 at Star Lake Amphitheater was a huge undertaking from the times the fans park, their entire experience. And I think that's really what I've been trying to create here, is that fan experience from the time they arrive at our venue until the time they leave.
What does fan experience mean to you?
So it's every, single piece of it. The way you're greeted at the door. We have to do security now, which was kind of, not a thing in the past. But even artists will say if, they won't even look at your building to come unless you have security protocols in place. So that was kind of a big undertaking right when I got the position, is to set that up. But then to make sure that's an okay experience, right, because it's something different. Then from, our food and beverage prices to the show they see, to their exit as they leave, and we thank them for coming, and we want them to come back and see us again. So it's the entire experience, not just the concert itself.
Let's talk about the cost of artists. I'm old enough to remember when Ogilvy Institute put on their summer series. I saw Ray Charles at the amphitheater at Ogilvy. Now, to bring an equivalent person in today would cost what, 6 figures easily.
Absolutely.
How has that changed things? In fact, excuse me, Elton John was here twice, and he made a comment. He said, "Why am I in Wheeling, West Virginia, and Johnstown tomorrow?" And he said, "Because you people will never get to see me, and I'm purposely touring so that the smaller towns get to see an artist of my stature." How do you do that? Or do you just, obviously you have to pass on a Lady Gaga.
Yeah, absolutely. One, because we don't have enough seats to hold a show like that. And then, ticket price would just be outrageous, and a fan couldn't afford to go. But no doubt I've seen that change drastically in my years in the entertainment business. It was part of the reason Jamboree in the Hills kind of ended, because the artist was so expensive, and to fill 4 days of entertainment and then everyone bringing their food and beverage inside the venue, we weren't making any revenue on that end. So, it kind of have outpriced themselves in a lot of markets, which is why, people pay so much money to see an artist. The venue itself is making their money on all the ancillary things. So a ticketing fee or food and beverage, any kind of upsell they can do to a fan is how the venue actually makes money, because the ticket really just covers the artist payment at the end of the day.
That's great. Now, let's talk about how you select an artist. Today, how many calls do you expect to get on an average day from people that are representing those artists?
It is a full-time job. Just doing that piece of it is only because we're kind of just now getting Wheeling back on the map in a lot of ways, because especially at the arena we were dormant for many years without any concerts happening. So my goal has just been right now is to agents know, promoters know that we are open for business. We want the business. So it is a lot. I mean, I have holds in the calendar clear through 2027. So people are planning ahead for a couple years, and artists may not be going out for 2 more years, but they're already planning their routing. So it's very busy, and it's great. It's fantastic. So
Okay, let's suppose you get 5 calls in one day, and it's 5 really interesting acts, ranging from bull riding to heavy metal to whatever. How do you, and they all want the same day, what's the process you go through to select an artist, and what kinds of things do you have to watch out for? Let's put it that way.
So there's quite a few things. I mean, first, if it's a promoter holding the date, and then another promoter calls to hold that same date for a different artist, it comes to almost a challenge. So there's almost like a bidding war to figure out who's going to get that date first. And when I first started, that wasn't happening. It is happening now. We have
Great. Congratulations.
Yes, which is wonderful. So we have top promoters looking at Wheeling, and they're like, we want that date for our artist. And so it's whoever makes the commitment, signs the contract, puts the deposit down first, kind of wins that date.
Okay, so it's based purely on getting the cash in hand, not what the act is or what the act does and so forth.
Right, if it's a hold, because that's how it works in the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, a promoter offers you a comedian who has let's say a foul mouth or is into subjects that can cause people issues. Does that deter you, or do you just say, hey, we want to sell the ticket? I hate to be that critical, but it's really the bottom line is show me the Benjamins, that.
Right. I mean, we don't say so-and-so can't come because it's all, a personal issue. Obviously, if they're selling tickets at other venues, that means there's a demand to see the act.
First Amendment, too.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Yeah, because I remember it's been quite a while, a couple decades at least, but Marilyn Manson, I still call it the Civic Center, announced Marilyn Manson was coming, and boy, people just went off the deep end about that. But I think they still had the show and so forth. Have you ever had that to run into that kind of issue, or?
Not yet. I mean, no doubt. I think it's a personal choice. So
People can stay away if they.
Yeah, some
Okay.
people feel strongly.
I was at because I'm an old guy, at the Beach Boys concert, and it was so cool to see that theater entirely sold out. I love to tell people this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are more seats in the Capitol than in Heinz Hall. So filling it can be pretty difficult.
It can be, yes, but not for that show.
No,
that was wonderful.
It was a fun show. With Mike Love being 82, gave me hope. We will get to what's coming up in a little while. What were some recent acts, and how were they received? And if some weren't received well, let us know about that too, because you can't win. You
Can't win them all. That's right. It's part of the business, And I think the team, my team that we have, feels a little defeated sometimes when we only sell 600 tickets for an act. But that's 600 people that wouldn't have been able to see that show if we hadn't brought it to Wheeling. So it's it's kind of. We're not 100% sure. There was no data or analytics when I came in to judge what shows work, what shows don't work. So that's what we're building now. And with the help of the Co-Pro Fund that the city and the CVB each put money in.
Can you explain what that is?
Sure. The city put in $250,000 and the CVB also put in $250,000 to create this co-promotion fund, which is attractive, especially since we're trying to build Wheeling to a promoter that may not have looked at Wheeling before. So we say to them, you want to bring the Beach Boys in. We think it's going to be a great show. We'll be partners in this with you. So that gives us a little bit of leverage to assist with new promoters coming into the area, which is what we're trying to do, is broaden that, the horizon for as many promoters as possible to look at Wheeling as a place to bring acts, because there's several, from Live Nation, the big guy, down to somebody who's, working out of Burgettstown, Pennsylvania, Charlie Pappas, and he brings the doo-wop shows to us.
I'm a friend with Chuck.
With Charlie?
Chuck Porch.
Oh, Chuck Porch.
Right.
Chuck Porch is another great one,
Yeah.
so kind of helps that, person who wants to get into the business, and we can assist them and saying, yes, we believe in the show too, we want to help you sell it. So we're partners in that, instead of just them renting the theater and taking the entire risk themselves.
Let's talk competition. I know that the promoters don't want to have so-and-so playing in San Diego today, Wheeling tomorrow, Boston next week, that they want to go Johnstown, Wheeling, Toledo, something like that, where there's a sense to that kind of travel. What competition do you have? And I really want to talk about, oh, she just went out of my head, the Palace Theater up in, because that's where I saw the Beach Boys there a year ago, and it was worth it, the drive. They've got stuff going on, and this is not a criticism, but they've got stuff going on all the time, and that town is, it's close to, what, an hour from Pittsburgh? I don't know how they pull it off, so.
Yeah, that theater has definitely grown over the years. I've gone to many shows myself there. It's a wonderful theater, and we can also play the same show as them. We don't like to do it right after them. So usually in an artist, there'll be a radius clause in there to say that they can't play within 60 or 90 miles within a 60-day period. So there's a time frame, because no one wants to hurt each other at the same time, but everybody wants the show, So, and it's also a good reference. We look at what the Palace Theater is doing. We have a good relationship, with many venues that we say, how did that show do
even
for
the
you?
casino here, you've got a lot of, well, there are a lot of cover bands there, but they will bring in a
Sure.
name once in a while.
Sure, and we realized just a few weeks ago that they were doing a Fleetwood Mac tribute. We had a Fleetwood Mac tribute, and we were not, helping each other. We're hurting each other. So we want to be good partners within the city and the community as well, and we want to help Ogilvy, the track, whoever is doing a performance, so that we're not competing with them in any way.
Well, that's great. What do performers now, I got to tell you, the Capitol dressing room needs some work. Okay. What do they think of Wheeling? And they must love being on the Capitol stage just because of its history.
Yes.
And tell a little about what the performers think of Wheeling and performing here.
Yeah, absolutely. We've only gotten rave reviews so far. No doubt, there are always upgrades that need to be made. The theater, was built in 1926, so to upkeep that sometimes a little more difficult. But we didn't have showers there. We've installed showers in the dressing rooms now. Little things here and there that we can afford to do. But we also always do kind of like a Wheeling welcome basket that we give to the artists when they're here. And there have been times Beach Boys, they were kind of fighting over who takes what piece, just to make them feel welcome and kind of tell them a little bit about Wheeling and what it means to all of us. So.
And you've recently installed some stuff on the stage that I guess is really important with the Broadway shows.
Yeah, absolutely. We installed a brand new fly system. So the original was still in place there. And this one is motorized. It can hang more production, more backdrops. So much better for production-wise for any show, but especially for Broadway, ballet, dance shows.
That have the big sets.
Yes.
Speaking of Broadway, there are no Broadway shows this year, but there's this real reason for it. It's not they don't want to come to Wheeling. Explain the reasoning why that happened and what will come in the future.
Yeah, so Broadway, the tough part about Broadway is most of them go into a city and they play a week. Or longer. They might do a month stay in a city. So we have to find those, Broadway shows that are just one night only.
And can
tear
down, to put up and tear down.
Tear down in the same day, which has proven more difficult as the years go on. And so I think people, if they look back over the last several years of the Broadway series, there were some shows that maybe weren't considered Broadway, So we're just taking a year off, and then look forward to come back in full force next year.
That's great. Speaking of things coming up, You got any secrets that you can tell me on the air that what's coming up? I'm sure you've got some good acts coming up. But what are some of the things that people can be looking for?
Yeah, we have. I mean, even this week is a very busy week. We have Little Feat tomorrow. We have Godsmack at the Arena on Wednesday. Wheeling Symphony is doing their second Masterworks on Friday. And then looking into November and December, we just have a ton of holiday shows. Illusionist, Rudolph is coming, Disney Junior at the end of this month. Just so many things, I can't even keep track of all of them. We kind of go like day to day, trying to figure out what's coming up. But we are going to be very busy, so the team is ready 7 days a week.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's I've seen weekend. It's not doesn't happen often, but you have again bull riding at one end of town and the Wheeling Symphony at the other. Now the audiences do not overlap.
Right.
You're not taking away from one or the other, but it's so neat. And the old days. Well, the old days actually are here. It's just we don't see the buses, but the theater is filled. It looks like the parking situations could be a little better too with that 14th Street garage opening up. It's a 2-block walk, people. It's not going to be.
We always say Wheeling's not really a walking town, but there is plenty of parking, and once that opens, it's going to be extremely helpful for us.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you and your staff for all the good things that you've done for the town, and the way it's sounding, I'm very confident that this will continue. And look, who knows? Maybe Lady Gaga might show up.
You never know.
Well, again, I want to thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all. We'll be seeing you next week. Have a great week.